I would like to start a discussion. Should Disney buy the DC Extended Universe? Personally, I believe the mouse should take the reins, simply because of the success of the MCU. I feel like the DCEU would greatly benefit from copying the 10-year arc that birthed the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Regardless of the state of the MCU now, it's hard to deny the impact that the MCU has had on the entire movie industry. Even though the 10-year arc has been done before, it hasn't been beaten into the ground yet. The DCEU could copy the MCU playbook and people would love it. I don't mean lighten up the DCEU. One of the things I love about DC Comics in general is how dark it is. While the MCU has very comedic characters and storylines, DC specializes in mental illness and depression. Most of the stories, settings, and characters are gritty, rough, and a little sad. Now, without compromising the dark nature of DC Comics, we could build a large, cohesive universe. We are even able to learn from the mistakes and retcons the MCU made. The MCU already laid out the blueprints to build a successful comic book universe. Origin stories, a big team building fight, origin sequels that show the effect of the big fight, internal conflict, third installments to origin stories, and then an extremely large fan service film broken into two parts. In more depth, we need a series of origin stories for the members of the Justice League. They could introduce characters that are not known by the layman, such as Hawkgirl, Atom, Zatanna, or John Constantine. We can skip the origins of the big three because we know their stories already. We don't need to see Martha get her pearl snatched in the alleyway again. We don't need to see the Kansas farmers finding a space cradle holding the lone survivor of a dying planet again. And we don't need to see the island of strong independent female warriors. On second thought, we can do that one again. After the origins would come a Justice League movie where the team finally gets together, just like Zack Snyder's Justice League, with a boss battle, and maybe even an introduction to the Hall of Justice. Next, a series of origin sequels that take place after the Justice League movie. Now, we don't have to keep introducing new members. One thing I can't say that I loved was how crowded the MCU got towards the end. Don't get me wrong, I love superhero movies and all of the MCU, but I felt like some of the characters didn't get the screen time they deserved. Some of the heroes were introduced just for fan service. They didn't even progress the plot. Next, we will need a movie that shows a little bit of internal conflict, their own personal civil war. I don't know enough about DC Comics to suggest what storyline to use, but I'm sure there's something we could go with. Maybe we could find a way to adapt the Injustice storyline to the DCEU. For those of you who know a little less than me, Injustice is a story where the Justice League was split in half because of an internal conflict. Essentially, it was an argument about Batman's golden rule. Finally, we need our third installment of sequels that open the door to other properties and TV shows, all accumulating to a two-part finale, something like a Flashpoint or a Darkseid battle. After that, open up the DCEU to TV shows, one-shots, and more movies. I realize that I haven't brought up the CW yet, and there's a reason for that. Because I forgot. But now that you bring it up, let's discuss it. As a former fan of the Arrowverse, I have to say that I have no idea what happened to it. I used to watch Arrow all the time. So much so that I actually tricked my wife into naming our youngest son after one of the characters. It was a great show, but eventually it got stale and ridiculous. When they started introducing way too many characters and it began to morph into an actual universe between shows was when I had to make my exit. The Flash suffered the same issue that Arrow did. It was adding way too many characters and then got stale and ridiculous. The Flash's villains were always speedsters who were faster than him, and he inevitably learned to run faster and outsmart his opponents. I couldn't get into Supergirl or Legends of Tomorrow One, because I've always thought Superman was boring, and B, if I wanted to watch a time-traveling TV show, I would start watching Doctor Who again. The rest of the Arrowverse seems to be subpar and forgettable. I'm not even going to bother to address Batwoman, Superman and Lois, or Black Lightning. I feel like the Arrowverse is the best live-action version of many of these heroes, but it's still not good enough. Hardcore fans of the Arrowverse are only that because they don't have any other choice. If you ask me, the Arrowverse should be canceled and left to be a fond memory that we remember as being better than it was. One thing I think that Disney could help DC with is hiring better actors. There's something about that Disney contract that keep actors in line. It seems like DC actors always have some sort of problem, hiccup, or issue that compromises the bigger picture. Henry Cavill wouldn't shave his mustache due to contractual agreements to another movie. Jared Leto methodically method acted his way right into the MCU, kind of, through his ridiculous portrayal of gangster Joker. Amber Heard fought her way into Aquaman and out of her fans' loving arms. Finally, Ezra Miller is drenched in controversy, multiple assaults, a kidnapping, and a plethora of other crimes. I have to say that DCEU actors have a PR problem. I guess that this video turned into more of a how to improve the DCEU. I do think that this can be accomplished with Disney. Disney already has the infrastructure laid out. And just like Kevin Feige is the president of Marvel Studios and the spearhead behind the success of the MCU, we could bring on Zack Snyder to be the president of the DCEU. These are just my thoughts, and I know there are differing opinions, but that's why I wanted to start a conversation. I would love to hear from you. Tell me why I'm onto something or how wrong I am in the suggestion box below. P.S. All this was written before the Black Adam trailer was released. I have hopes for the movie, but my feelings still stand. Take it easy.